Ladies and gentlemen, this is your final boarding call for the good ship SS Tomorrow.
Today on The Friendly Futurist, give us a C, give us an A, give us an I, give us an O. And welcome back, and we're continuing another hot topic that I like to continue through on this show is the future of the workforce. We all like to know where the salary is coming from. We all got to pay mortgages still in the future. And this is an ongoing topic. I know it might be a bit dry, and I have read some of those comments. But to me, this is still fascinating. And who knows, you could be inspired to climb the corporate ladder into the C-suite. Now, I have covered the workplace and how much it's changed since the pandemic, which is now 5 years ago. Boy, as time flew, this decade would be over before we knew it. But if you want to continue with a similar topic, I encourage you to go back to Season 10, Episode 7, when we chatted with Mahesh from Fujitsu Australia, or go back to Season 12, Episode 7, Nathan Rollins from Lucid. Very interesting way the workplace is happening, particularly with hybrid work, working from home, and all this new technology to enable you to live and work wherever you want. I think that's the ultimate dream. Anyhow, today's topic is why your organisation may need a CAIO, Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer. Now, this has been inspired, and a big shout out if he's listening, to one of my futurist heroes, Bernard Marr. I try to get the likes of Bernard on my show, but it's one of my podcast goals probably for this year. Still that close in 2024, but frustrations. Anyhow, we're entering into the fourth industrial revolution. We're entering to Industry 5.0. We are going to see more and more of humans and machines working side by side. It's important to think if you're going into a higher up in the corporate ladder, soon in the C-suite, there is a potential for a CAIO. This might not necessarily be the top board, but definitely will report back to the board. It also combines both skills of both understanding code and development, software engineering, but also soft skills, stakeholder engagement, for example. So anyone with both a tech background and a marketing communications background, this is probably an ideal position if you want to climb the rungs that you may inspire to become. Anyhow, today's guest is Graham Kittle. He's from Heidrick and Struggles, and he's the managing partner for their Australian office. And Graham is coming up after the break. Welcome back to another episode, and we've got a special guest. We've got Graham Kittle. He's the managing partner over for Heidrick and Struggles in Australia. And Graham, welcome to the show. And as for all my guests, can you give us a quick rundown on your journey so far and start wherever you want to start?
Thanks, Dave. Great to be part of it. For the context, clearly these days I lead Heidrick and Struggles in Australia, but also very much in the executive search market myself in tech. Heidrick and Struggles is one of the leading search firms globally, so we've got a presence right across the world, and our offices in Australia are a major focus for the region. Context background, where I think it makes this conversation really helpful and interesting one, is that prior to joining Heidrick, in addition to focusing on tech and AI today, I came up through a consulting and consulting services background focused on data and analytics and digital and data, working Australia and internationally with some of the leading data firms and data warehousing in the early days, and then more recently consulting services and management consulting and technology services, but always with a focus on data. And then joining Heidrick about 11 years ago, again, focusing on tech more broadly than just data, but still working in and around the data and analytics and these days AI space.
And today, of course, we're talking all about AI and potential for a CAIO. We'll get to that a bit later, but those words coming out in 2025, what is the state of the AI technology adoption in the Australian workforce today?
I think the adoption is still somewhat in the early stages, but with a lot of enthusiasm. Sometimes in some organisations, and it depends somewhat on industries, it's done very purposefully. Other ways, I would say it's a little bit more of a tactical, not the highest priority, but will become. And I think the adoption has been great by and large globally. Australia, we ran a survey amongst 400 odd leaders in data and AI globally. Australia had a good representation in that. In that particular survey, we saw that we lagged against Europe and the US when it came to the belief that AI was a core part of the company's future and strategy. But it's still high. It was still 70% as opposed to, or 69% as opposed to 84% in the US and around about the same in Europe. So that's the belief that AI, by the AI leaders, is being taken seriously by their organisation. So that's a good number. There is a bit of a lag. I think some industries are more developed than others, and we can talk a little bit about what they are and which industries more broadly. But the adoption, by and large, is good, but I'm not sure everyone's really bought into the strategic implications. Often it's around process improvement or an Australian software tech firm. That's something that we're focused on in our engineering teams. It's not necessarily seen as the opportunity it can be strategically yet. The history, if you think about AI and data generally, suggests that the adoption will be very pervasive. And obviously, as we've all heard and read similar things, the implications and the impact of AI is far stronger than anything that we've worked with before in terms of data more broadly.
Fantastic. And what are some of the other challenges facing the widespread adoption in the Australian workforce today?
Oh, look, I think it's across a few areas. First of all, again, there's a lot of enthusiasm, and we've been here before, but again, what I alluded to a moment ago, the impact is going to be more profound in a very positive sense. And obviously there needs to be guardrails and governance and things. We can talk about some of the concerns later. Some of the challenges are probably organizations seeing AI as a process efficiency play. We're a large bank or we're a large industrial, and we see a real opportunity for improving process efficiency because we can do things faster for less. And that's a really important consideration, no question. And so that means a few things. If you're one of those large organizations with a big upside for automation, fantastic. If you're an organization that's focused mostly on software development and taking some great Australian innovative software globally, the view today can be more around this is something for our engineering teams, as I mentioned. So I think one of the barriers is not fully seeing the strategic importance and implications of AI. And we all hear about the risk, and that may be a barrier, but I don't think people are necessarily seeing the full opportunity in the strategic. So what I mean by that is shaping strategy, insights around the market, even freeing executives up to focus more on strategy and more on the execution rather than the operation side of things, which can be automated. So I think that's a barrier to a degree. It's perhaps slowing adoption. When the lights come on, I think there's a real acceleration. I can talk about a couple of Australian organisations without name later about who is. Then, of course, there is governance and concern around not getting it or getting it right, and some fear. And clearly there's a lot of media and press and interesting things to read about that. Then I think the other one that's probably most profound is access to talent. We've heard about a talent and a war on talent, I should say, in data and analytics. Clearly, AI talent is also at certain levels rare, some of the skills that are needed. And, one organisation we know maps who are the top 20 AI leaders globally, and they've hired one. So I think, that suggests that we need to take a really strong strategic view on talent, which is the lack of talent and availability of, and I will say also the expense. I mean, some of the salaries justifiably that are being paid for chief AI officers or chief AI leaders is really much higher in the US and to some degree Europe than in Australia. So one of the other barriers is for Australia being able to get the top leaders of the world. It's expensive. So are we able to and willing to pay the premium? I think that's obviously also a barrier potentially.
Yeah, very interesting. And Look, I'm going a little bit off script here, and because I know a lot of my listeners are high school teachers and do work with young people going through STEM subjects. So what would be some advice? Because no, with the talent, of course, you can't just, an AI developer doesn't grow on trees and these have to come from somewhere. So what's some good tips for, say, a 16, 17-year-old who are going to the ATAR and, what subjects, what should they really be paying attention to so they can be prepared to become really that top AI talent?
I think Australia's done a great job in arresting an issue and clearly bringing STEM to the fore. And there isn't a household probably in the country who hasn't heard about the focus. And I think we've made great strides. There's still a long way to go. Yeah. We've made really good strides. So that sets up to the fact is that the sciences and technology is not geeky. It's essential. And there's a very strong commercial angle to it as well. So I think, first of all, on the branding side, everyone knows it's important and it's kind of cool again. The impact that a leader can have in data and AI is profound in an organization. So first of all, the future is bright in terms of getting STEM further on the agenda. And so I think the tips to, if I were 15 or 16 right now, I'd be thinking, wow, the world is my oyster. There's so much opportunity in data and AI like never before. There's a shortage of skills. I would be absolutely doing my best in high school, choosing the right subjects, of course, and then choosing the right institution, university. And I think by and large, universities are doing a pretty good job in bringing data and AI onto the agenda, and that's not a new thing. I think, though, there's more to go to tap into global and groundbreaking. And again, I think there's a little bit more focus on automation and the commercial upside, which is usually a cost reduction. But there should be more focus on customer and the commercial, developing new products, great, developing new strategies, but how do we streamline and make customer satisfaction higher through adopting AI? So getting back to the high school link, it's not just a technology bias or stream. There's also a heavily commercial customer bias. I see the future hugely bright where AI-enabled sales and marketing teams are doing things that they never thought possible before and providing more value to customers. So I think the STEM program, essential, good strides, choose your subjects, choose your schools, choose your university, and the university will keep investing. But then also don't think as data and AI as just a technology stream. Yeah. There's a commercial stream. Like, how do we improve customer experience? What products do we take to market? How do we sell them? I think there's a huge career opportunity. It's incredibly exciting.
Fantastic. Yeah. I actually do lecture marketing, and we do have for the last 2 years been using AI increasingly in our curriculum. So yeah, I think the proof is in the pudding.
Well, we're just on that, Dave, actually. Good example. So that we talked about universities, schools and so on, but prior to joining Heidrick, as I mentioned, I was in consulting services. We worked with a major top 10 Australian company who had about 400 people in marketing. We worked with the CMO, and it was about delivering, moving from, I guess, the traditional marketing to data-driven marketing or data-informed marketing. And so there was a program that was developed to help to convert, train. And sometimes people, obviously the training is an important part. It's also attracting and retaining the right talent. But there was also that internal. So we think about education externally, sure, but there's also an opportunity internally to shift. And in that case, it's going back a few years now, but very relevant. It was moving from traditional marketing to data-informed and data-driven marketing. And that was an initiative over an 18-month period across marketers in that leading Australian organisation. So there's also those types of streams and programs we can follow.
Of course, the purpose of today's chat, Graham, is looking into the future, and one of my futurist heroes, I guess, have made this point, is the role of the CAIO, or the Chief Artificial Intelligence Officer. Are we starting to see that in the C-suite, or are we expected to see that in the next couple of years of a CAIO being more and more prevalent in the top executive level?
It's in the early stages. So there are definitely some Australian and global organisations, particularly in North America. And that's not uncommon. I mean, that's where the first chief data officers were being appointed, and, Australia quickly followed. So I see that there are definitely chief AI officers being appointed today. I think it links back to a comment I made earlier where some organisations, I should say, are thinking, okay, look, the operational advantage is fantastic and there's streamlining and some better ways to serve our customers as a result of doing that. But I think we'll see an acceleration over the next couple of years, to your question, where the lights are definitely coming on a board level, and then you'd have to argue they've been on for quite some time. But also when we start to see beyond that operational advantage in the customer and strategy development, that's when I think people will get the aha, which will be actually, you know what, there's way more than operational efficiency and strategy development, new product development, and improving customer experience. And I think that's going to take a couple of years. But absolutely, I see the Chief AI Officer at the C-suite. Some organizations in Australia are already doing that. I think it's a little bit like, I think about over the last sort of 10 or 15 years, we've seen Chief Analytics or Chief Data Officers being appointed. And arguably, some of those were at C-suite and some were a notch below, a step below. And they are still very prevalent. And some of those Chief Data Officers are becoming Chief AI Officers. But it's also a little bit like a Chief Transformation Officer. And I think that's where the report into CEO needs to be there, because a Chief Transformation Officer reporting into the CEO looks right across the organization, across operations, across sales, marketing, finance, legal, and so forth. And that's the lens that I think organizations would be most able to benefit from AI, with the lens across the organization. As I said, not just around operations and, there's so much more. But I think over the next couple of years, we're definitely going to see more C-suite direct reporting to the CEO in terms of Chief AI Officers.
For those who are aspire to be a CAIO, what sort of hard and soft skills you think will be needed to tick all the boxes to get to that job?
It's interesting. So, when those conversations start in an organization, they often start as being that person needs to be, I guess, a deep specialist in AI. And certainly the office of the Chief AI Officer needs to have a deep technical specialization in and around AI. However, the real impact is had in understanding the business and then communicating with the rest of the business to not only understand the opportunities, but also to understand the outcomes, if you like. So I think getting to hard and soft skills, definitely having a strong background in data and AI, but also I think the most important skills, let's say that you need to have enough of the context, it's the application. And so that's where it becomes communication, stakeholder management. I think what's really important is to understand the questions to be asked. And they're always business questions to ask of the technology capability. So I think hard skills, technology, definitely, AI, absolutely. But sometimes we can overemphasize when actually it needs to be more those transformative skills, dealing with C-suite, dealing with board, communicating, and then bringing everyone together around a common vision to understand the opportunity. So there's hard and soft skills.
I guess too, yeah, as you said, it's all about stakeholder engagement. So
yeah,
really people with a PR background might be in the box seat.
Yeah, look, I think the positives around, say, a PR or marketing background, communications background, absolutely key, but there still does need to be enough context around AI or data and the application of data for business improvement. And that's that transformative skill. And I think it is a mix, definitely. You use the term hard and soft skills. So there are definitely some hard skills that are needed, but those softer communication, stakeholder engagement, and that's right through from board, right through the entire organization.
Interesting. And of course, this podcast is about the future, Graham. Where do you see the space in, say, near 2030 and beyond?
I think fast growth. No question. We're all talking about, and sometimes ethics, I guess, are held by the fear. There's also a lot of interest in the opportunity. And providing we put the guardrails in place, there's an enormous amount of opportunity for everyone. Look, there's possibly going to be, quite likely, some displacement of the workforce into other areas. But if I think about my team and our organisation across Australia, as we embrace AI, it's absolutely helping us to provide more value to our clients, getting to know the businesses better, getting to know our candidates better, the executives. And we only mostly do board and CEO and direct reports into. So the fact that we in the service industry, and everything I'm saying could apply to any service industry, really, consulting services, strategy. If we can do some of the mundane in an automated or faster way, the ability to manage stakeholders, deal with humans, understand business problems, and then solve those, then that's moving further up the value chain and having bigger impact. So where's the future? Lots of opportunity. Where roles may disappear, many will be created. Putting the guardrails in place, I would see in 3 to 5 years. And remember, there's always a risk and the reality of overestimating the impact and underestimating the complexity. We've gone from 18 months to 2 years ago, no knowledge to being a household term and a deep knowledge in some parts of industry and market. I think over the next sort of 2 to 5 years, the value will be understood more broadly. Like I said, operational, commercial opportunity, customer, sales, product. And so I see that in sort of 3 to 5 years as we, first of all, probably get it a bit wrong and underestimate the complexity. But certainly, I think the chief AI officer reporting to C-suite will become commonplace in the next years. It needs to. I mean, the opportunity is too great. And I think at the moment, we held a roundtable with 10 or so chief people officers from nearly all of the leading Australian technology firms. And definitely when it came to engineering, AI is core to what we do. But when it came to the opportunity to develop strategy using AI to find other insights and opportunities, that was not so much on the agenda. So it was relegated to the theme I've mentioned a few times. Yeah, that's something for our engineering team. But some are doing really well. Test and learn. Let's get in there and fail fast and learn and be patient zero. Apply in your own teams. If you're a chief people officer, how are we going to apply? If you're leading sales and marketing or strategy, it's still pretty early days, but there's already major gains to be made that allow you to focus on more value-adding, higher impact things. So I think the future's super bright. Guardrails need to be put in place. Providing we can do that, I think, really bright future.
Well, I'm enjoying our chat this afternoon. Graham, before we wrap things up, is there anything I didn't ask but should?
No, look, I don't think so. I think I don't want to go too far back in saying this is like the chief data officer or the chief digital officer, but there are some parallels and things to learn. Chief digital officer, for example, those roles that were reporting into CEO, they were good for a time, and then we became a digital organization that was just part of what we do.
Yeah.
And so the chief digital officer and CIO kind of became, in some cases, the same person, or at least the same function. Chief transformation is closer to chief AI officer, where the impact is pervasive right across the organization. And it isn't going to be, we're just an AI organization, so we don't need that role anymore. So I think just emphasizing the obvious, which is lots of opportunity and upside right across the organization.
Fantastic. It's great to wrap things up with. Before we go, Grant, where else can we find you?
Okay, great. Well, Heidrick and Struggles, you can definitely find our website. We are a global organization, and then the other opportunity is clearly on LinkedIn and on the socials. So we're pretty active across developing white papers. So please visit our website. There's plenty of white papers on AI, the implications, and then some of the common management and leadership issues and opportunities. So I think that's probably the best place.
Awesome. Graham, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks, Dave.
My pleasure. And thank you to Graham for his input, and Ian Yee from Hoffman, who actually was his first ever podcast booking. So, ladies and gentlemen, let's give Ian a round of applause. Takes a lot of guts. Friendly Futurist is a podcast West production. It's produced and edited by me, Dave Mark. If you love this show, please give us a 5-star review on your favourite platforms. Until next time, friends, remember to stay curious. In the future is user-friendly.
Another Podcasts West production.
This podcast is just for educational purposes and it's not financial advice. I'm not a financial planner or advisor. Please do your homework and seek professional help before you take on any adventures.